Hello. So, I'm not sure about you, but if you're a Blizzard fan, or just a World of Warcraft player, you've probably heard of Seasons of Discovery. When it was announced, it kind of felt like Classic Plus was finally coming to the fan base, a game following the spirit of 2004's classic World of Warcraft, a game that changed the world. But if you did play Seasons of Discovery in its Phase 1 rollout, which only had you go to level 25, well, it wasn't really Classic Plus, was it? It was a Season of Discovery. And I personally tried a rogue. I was moving at the time and felt like I just didn't have time to really do anything in SOD. And on top of it, I was playing a rogue and it was not fun in that phase. Well, we fast forward almost a year, and they're rolling out their Phase 8 of the season, and it involves this new Scarlet Crusade raid. Naxxramas is overhead, and I have some friends that have said, it's not that bad. Or, it's like a hit of dopamine when I play. Numbers go up, things die. I wanted to at least see the game, but I didn't want to just grind optimally and play catch up. I wanted to find an experience. So an idea was born. Personally, I love Warcraft 3, and I wanted to incorporate something from the game that made me want to play World of Warcraft in the first place. So, there I am. I'm in the war room, sipping Moonwell water, just taking time to brainstorm. Some of my friends even joined in the strategy, and originally we were thinking, how do I make the Blade Master from Warcraft 3 into World of Warcraft? However, there was a glaring issue. My friends are playing Alliance. I'm not rolling an orc, just to play solo out there if I even make it to the end of the game. But who is just as cool, if not cooler, than the Blade Master? You're right. Muradin effin Bronzebeard, the Mountain King that assisted Arthas of Menethil in claiming Frostmourne, where my love for Dwarven/Scottish accents stemmed from. So, that was it. Let's adventure through Seasons of Discovery as the Mountain King from Warcraft 3. Now, we have to ask the question, what does it mean to be the Mountain King? What does Warcraft 3 have to even do with this? And so the plan is drafted, and I present it to you in the least legally binding way possible. Warcraft 3's Mountain King's hero had the following notes. 1, it has to be a dwarf, and not this reforged monstrosity that they're showing. We need the original dwarf Mountain King. Much better. 2, most likely a warrior class, and after dual wielding's unlocked, we should only be using a mace in the main hand and an axe in the offhand. At least, I think this is an axe. It looks more like a butcher's cleaver, but I don't know. The graphics back then were something else. And number 3, the Mountain King has 4 signature abilities that we either have to obtain and or use in our rotation. A, Stormbolt, which is a stunning set target ability. B, Thunderclap, slamming the ground and thunder clapping. C, Bash, which is a passive bonus damage attack that can also stun an opponent. And then D, Avatar. You get big, bonus armor, health, and spell immunity. From these specifics, that's where we begin our Theorycraft. Our dwarven warrior, named Tiny Mountain, because in World of Warcraft, my character names always seem to have tiny in them. And King is allegedly banned as a name by Blizzard. No, like seriously, look at me like trying to type these names in and they're just being denied. So eventually we get the name Tiny Mountain, and with that naming fiasco out of the way, I sort of end up having to brainstorm through about 7 phases worth of updates in Seasons of Discovery regarding runes, and planning out how warriors work in Classic. Luckily for me, I did play a Fury Prot warrior in Classic during the peak year of 2020 for WoW's resurgence, so I remember where and what to expect. However, just seeing the rune salesman in the starting zone and everything costing 1 copper, well, I knew that this was going to be way too easy if we just played with every bell and whistle available. So I added some rules. First rule, We can only use up to common graded items, so those are the white text items, and they must be gathered or purchased by us. The only exception to this rule in regards to common items will be rings, the necklace slot, and trinkets. If you're a fan of Warcraft 3, you know that in terms of gameplay, special items and stat boosters like this usually came from quests, shops, and monster drops. This also lets us get a little more creative as the game goes on, especially with trinkets. Second rule, we cannot use the auction house or professions. Any money we need to or will be making is by purely selling items and drops and doing quests. With the current 3 times the quest reward buff, I don't really see this being that hard. It's probably going to be a bit easier on us in general. Third rule, once we hit level 20, our goal is to maintain the Mountain King rotation, which will be using as many thunderclaps as we possibly can and hitting melee attacks as much as we can. And that's the rules we have so far. As we develop more throughout the world, I may add on to these rules, but we'll see how difficult this is going to be. Now that the rules and the inspiration are great, what about the build? The builds in Seasons of Discovery are a bit weird if you ask me. There are over 30 runes, and then we have talents to coincide with these choices. The biggest hurdle we have to start is, well, we have to make sure the Mountain King, like we're him, but so much of that revolves around us dual wielding. So these first 20 levels is about surviving and seeing our limitations. But there's a bigger issue. The real issue is we need Stormbolt. And the only way I think we can do this is aiming for this talent. This talent here is buried roughly 30 levels into the protection tree, which means we're going to be dumping our initial levels, starting at level 10, to aim for this ability. And once we get it, we can start aiming for another talent tree. This is going to make us weirdly defensive, but also we don't want to use our defensive stance nor a shield, so we'll see how that goes. And with all that expose out of the way, we can begin our journey. We begin by buying our runes. We make sure our add-ons are working, which are really just there to add an immersive experience, and we begin in the humble lands of Coldridge Valley, near the town of Anvilmar. And despite these countless people running amongst me, the townsfolk here are in dire need of help. There are wolves that are both overpopulating and have good meat on their bones for eating. There are trogs to deal with. Boars are running amok in the lands where letters should be delivered. People, they're missing their tools in various camps. There's even someone who needs a hot cup of coffee, but because of a bum leg, they could never get it there in time. Surprisingly, the gnomish engineers haven't figured out how to make an ember mug yet. Must be lost in Nomergon. But the worst travesty of all is there's an influx of trolls. And maybe in today's modern WoW, where we're all trying to empathize and get along, but this is absolutely not okay for the dwarves that live here. They're encroaching on dwarven territory. They're stealing supplies. They're digging out ice caves. And worst of all, they stole our boy, Grellin Whitebeard's journal. How could they? He's been writing some amazing stuff in there, like poems about, this young chap who works at the inn in Karanos. He has some detailed sausage recipes in there. And the most important is all these Marcus Aurelius Stoic quotes in there that keep him on his grind. So, we couldn't have that. So we began killing trolls. And honestly, getting Thunderclap at these levels, with all these bonus runes made of AoE farming, doing this much AoE farming in Classic, I felt like I was a Frost Mage. We were hunting, and nothing could stand a chance when we were self-healing with Victory Rush. And what a rush it was. In no time, we had solved everyone's problems in Anvilmar. And then, we were asked to become a delivery boy. According to our local homies here, we were in need in Karanos, a land of steam engines, Wendigos, and beer-battered sausages. I mean, yeah, we just committed a massacre on a race of indigenous trolls just trying to live on their land, but we're delivering these things, these shipments to an inn, and that seems like the next logical step in our career. So we headed off. There was a lot to do in Keranos and the surrounding areas. We tested new abilities and tried to push the boundaries of our AoE pulling. We stole kegs, we made kegs, and at one point we became members of PETA and began massacring animals for the greater good in an aggressive ad campaign by the Brunel Village Not and Budweiser Company. But there was one quest that was beyond important for us in these cold valleys. There was this guy, Tundra McGran, legendary hunter, smoked his meats, and those smoked meats were stolen. Not just stolen by some regular gnome or dwarf in the area, but an old and angry Wendigo. And yeah, he is about 3 miles from town. Sure. Could he buy food for roughly 40 copper? Also yes. But here's the thing. Those meats were in a thorium lockbox. And in classic WoW, that's literally the rarest metal you can mine for. He called this his secret stash. And I'm inclined to think this isn't just a stash of smoked meats. If you're curious more about this overall area and quest lore, there's actually a much more serious and soothing video by an amazing YouTuber, Jedi Warlaw, link in the description. Either way, I wasn't going to leave Tundi. If you're close to him like we are, you know that's his preferred nickname, high and dry like this. So, we went and we stole back his meats. But not without getting our buttocks absolutely smacked around by old Icebeard. Elites seem to be the only thing in Seasons of Discovery that do not take our bullshit. So, as time went on, we felt ourselves growing past Dun Morogh. Of course, on our journey out of these lands to allegedly greener pastures, we were contracted for a few more odd jobs. Some because we were a warrior, which involved us massacring our dark iron dwarven cousins for some rare ore. Just to make a weapon I had to vendor, of course. And there was another investigation of Trogs that involved me really testing my abilities to chain Victory Rush, Thunderclap, and the occasional potion. We did all this to arrive here, though. Loch Modan, the land of greenery, more indigenous humanoids that should not, by dwarven standards, have the right to exist, the beautiful Loch, where the area derives its name from, and more sausages. Honestly, the love of sausages by dwarfs seem to make all Italians, Polish, and Germans just seem like amateurs in sausage making. They're cutting the sausages in town of Thesselmar with spider poison and bear meat. Just try finding that at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. So our adventures in the Loch are fun and they're explorative. We meet some interesting characters, like this band of soldiers who claim their forces are thinned due to all the good soldiers being sent to the war front. Which means, of course, even more pesky Trogs need the steady hand of the Mountain King, a place I begin to have war flashbacks to when I tried playing the unofficial hardcore challenge. Oof. So, anyway, Tiny Mountain takes my revenge, for me, all the way to the 3 Trog leaders. After another hour of Trog cleansing, we're left exploring Loch Modan. We kill kobolds, we help find out a grand conspiracy revolving around Dark Iron sympathizers stealing explosive powders, and we also find out archaeology really is a lot more like those Indiana Jones movies, which involves killing more people who may have a sort of birthright claim to those artifacts. But all this work, all these levels, not only lead us to level 20, but we also discover this quest. Well, we discover 3 quests. 3 elite quests. One, involving killing an old-ass bear who technically has done nothing wrong but supply an apex predator to the ecosystem here. And the other is about killing ogres. Big, tall, sweaty, in what appears to be an all-male-focused society. It turns out dwarves really don't agree with such a way of life and were tasked with taking out not only a majority of their forces, but also their leader. We really don't care about their reasons. What we care about is the rewards, the payment. Not just common shoulder pads, but a ring. A ring. This would literally be our first stat added to our character. And it may not be much, but it fits the challenge. So, we try to begin it all. And well, we were cocky. And it turns out, blind dwarven confidence against a large humanoid whose only defense is wearing an ill-fitted loincloth does not play well for Tiny Mountain here. And we get our gladiator trying ass stance handed to us. Our tactics are going to have to change. It's time to grab 2 proper weapons. which also means we needed some silver to buy a common axe for our offhand. And then we go full Mountain King. In the fires and forges of the anvils of Iron Forge, our weapons were smithed, our armors were fitted, and our runes were polished and placed upon our armors. Our talents enforced our defenses, and our passion ran true. First, we tested our mettle, narrowly defeating Old Sooty. It was confirmed. The king under the mountain was stronger than any wildlife amongst the Loch, and next on our target was ogres. Standing 3 times our height, we began our assault amongst their forces. Our blades swung true, they swung fast, but our damages were many. However, we pressed on, kept our wits about us, until we entered their true domain, where their most brutish, strongest lived. And holy hell did they have hands. We are not getting this place handled even at level 21, which we grinded out trying to get the silver for these new weapons. Our armor is also only for level 12, so we are already behind on that too. It looks like we got to get smarter to handle these elite quests. But where could we come up with such a plan? Will the tiny mountain ever get their shoulders, let alone a ring? Guess we got to keep up the journey and find out next time. All right, real quick. So thank you so much for anyone who gave this episode a listen. As I said at the beginning, this was a different style to my other videos, but it's both a fun video style to make, and it also gives me just a fun excuse to play through World of Warcraft and Seasons of Discovery. I don't think I would have enjoyed it otherwise. I can't wait to see what other adventures Tiny falls into, and if you enjoyed this video, you may also like my deep dives into my Should You Play series, where I discuss the games that may or may not belong on your ever-expanding unplayed games list. We also get a bit philosophical and technical in those videos, so it's overall just an interesting difference to this style of video, at least to me. Additionally, you can also find my self-published novels, where I have a few shorter stories and a fantasy novel based on a Dungeons & Dragons adventure, and of course, my pride of a horror novel called Eaters. You can find those on Amazon with a link to all these things as part of this video's ending and in the description. If you like this video, or you're subscribed to this channel now, I am beyond indebted to you. And I'm also very appreciative. Thank you again. Tiny out.